Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Hi, this is Brett Amron, and welcome to the Practice Podcast.
Hello, Brett. I'm Jeff Bast. I am very proud and excited to welcome a very special guest we have today, and that is Hayley Harrison. Hayley's an excellent insolvency, bankruptcy, and commercial litigation attorney in our firm. She started with our firm as a baby lawyer. Actually, she started as a summer associate. I think you were the first summer associate that we ever hired full-time, and she is still here, still surviving the wrath of Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Well, at least Brett Amron.
Thriving as an attorney, and she's also she's active locally in the community and specifically the Bankruptcy Bar Association for the Southern District of Florida. And we are excited for Hayley because she is about to start, or is starting maybe this week, her presidency her term as the president of the Bankruptcy Bar Association. So welcome, Hayley.
Cue the crowd.
Thanks
for having me.
Sound effects, Mr. Rosado. Can we do that?
Yeah, next time. Welcome, Hayley.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you came to the law.
So I am a fourth generation Miami native.
Stop right there. Full stop. That is unheard of.
Fourth, you said?
Fourth.
Wow.
I think you're third.
I'm second.
Second?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Somebody who's been here fourth generation. That's impressive.
Who was born here? Your parents? One of your parents?
My parents, my mom, for sure. My grandparents both were on my mom's side.
Okay, so third.
And my great-grandparents, I think at least one set. I know somewhere in New York and came down, but very early on.
Okay. I'm calling it third.
Right,
we're going to call it third. We're going to call it
third, but we've been here for a really long time.
Three-ish, but that's very impressive. And now your daughter is fourth. So
my daughter is fourth, and my daughter, we just moved recently into the neighborhood that I grew up in. So my daughter's going to go to the same elementary school, middle school, and high school that I went to and my mom went to.
Wow. Try and live up to the standards set by
well, I don't know about
grandmother
that,
and mother. Yes.
But yeah,
so sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead and tell us. Yeah.
So born and raised, went to all local public schools and just kind of grew up in the community, active in, our temple, active in lots of different activities throughout high school. I was on the speech and debate team and was always kind of one of those things that as a kid, everybody would look at me and you're going to be a lawyer one day. And I don't know if that was because I just like to argue with people or if I was very passionate about different things, but it was just kind of something that was always talked about, but I never really actively pursued it or thought about it. When I went to college, I actually majored in public relations, got a minor in business, and kind of thought I was going to go that route.
That was in Texas, University of Texas.
Yes,
Austin.
I went to the University of Texas at Austin.
Yes.
Absolutely. Which was, I guess, kind of an interesting journey from South Florida. But my parents actually both went to UT. That's where they met. And I always wanted to go there. That was never a question to me growing up.
It's a great school and a great city.
It is a great city and a great school. And when all of my friends from home were going to UF and FSU, I was like, I'm out of here. So that was kind of my opportunity to do something a little bit different.
But you came back.
I came back, and I always knew that I would because my family is here. My family's still here, and we're a very close, tight-knit family. And so it was kind of never a question that I would ultimately come back to Miami. When I was applying to law schools, I kind of applied all over. For a brief moment, I was going to go to GW. Had actually almost signed a lease to move to DC and go there for law school. But at the time, my younger brother was starting undergrad and had decided he was going to UF. And my mom was like, why don't we just go to Gainesville? Why don't we just go check it out? Because I had wanted nothing to do with it for undergrad, mostly just because I felt like everybody I knew was going there. It's different for law school, just, go look. So we went for a weekend, and I was mostly convinced by the fact that the price tag was about a third of what I was looking at spending at GW. Those student loans are killer. So that and the fact that obviously my brother was going to be there were kind of strong pulls. So I ended up at UF for law school.
And then obviously you got pulled back down to Miami post-graduation because family, right, and relatives that are already in the practice of law. And so you got pulled down here to complete law school, I think you told us, for your last year. And then you stayed in Miami.
Right. So actually, before I completed law school, I came down as like a transient student.
Right.
For my last semester, I wanted to participate in the Bankruptcy Clinic at UM because at UF, there were kind of limited courses. There was a bankruptcy course that was actually really interesting. A lot of practitioners from down here would come up and teach the advanced bankruptcy class at UF.
Mm-hmm.
But once I took that, it was kind of like, okay, where do I go from here? And I did know I wanted to be a bankruptcy lawyer from a pretty young age. My family has been involved and very active in the bar down here for over 40 years. And
really?
so
Somebody in your family is part of the bankruptcy bar?
There's only one.
there
right?
are two. And
who are they?
So
let's out them.
Let's give a shout out to them.
Funny that you say that because we can get into the bankruptcy bar in a little bit. But this weekend, some people found out for the first time that I'm related to Jerry Markowitz and Trish Redmond.
Wow.
It's my great aunt and uncle. And so kind of historically, like when I was in college and things like that, I would work for them over the summer and just always had an interest in bankruptcy. I always thought they were working on some of the most interesting cases. And I was drawn to it because depending on what type of debtor you were dealing with, right, what industry the debtor was in, it was like you were learning a whole new area of law. So the bankruptcy law doesn't change, but, you may have to learn about aviation or, mining or, lots of different types of, perfume industry.
Right.
So that to me was really interesting that there were so many different aspects that could be involved. And that, especially at the time, was a very consensual practice, right? There was a lot going on behind the scenes, lots of backroom negotiations and things like that, where a lot of times you would come into court and people would already be in agreement. So I just thought that whole process, it was like a puzzle that needed solving. It seemed like everybody wanted to figure out where their piece fit, and it just always piqued my interest. So came down my last semester of law school, was in the clinic at UM, ended up working here.
So what's the clinic at UM for listeners who don't know? What does that mean?
Sure. So that it is actually the Eleanor and AJ Crystal Pro Bono Assistance Clinic. And there are law students at UM who are guided by Professor Redmond, Professor Day, some of our local judges, and they get the opportunity to work on cases on a pro bono fashion for, it's a lot of Chapter 13 work typically, but
and
help
7,
Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 debtors kind of get through their cases and get an opportunity to get in front of a judge and participate in court before you even graduate law school. So I thought that was an interesting opportunity.
So it's a practical clinic. It's not just one of those where you do the work and hand it off to another lawyer. You actually get the opportunity to go into court and practice your skills.
Yeah, assuming that the case,
sure,
warrants that. But yes, absolutely.
Right.
But you meet with the client as a law student. You meet with the client. You're paired up with an attorney, and you get to assist a client who is in financial need, right, and guide them through an actual case from beginning to end.
Right, and it's generally, at a time, especially a lot of these clients of the clinic who, are really have fallen on tough times, and they're so grateful for the assistance from the students. And it just was one of those things that makes you feel good when you get to help people like that. So I thought it was a great opportunity, did that, and also figured since I knew I wanted to come back to Miami after I was done with law school, that it was a good opportunity to get to know some firms down here and get involved, hopefully, with a clerkship or something like that, and ended up clerking for you guys during my last semester.
I think it's a great point to emphasize, though, is that I think a lot of law students may not even be aware of that possibility that you can start law school somewhere, finish somewhere else, and you still got a degree from Florida, right?
Yes, I'm still a graduate of the University of Florida College of Law, and my credits just kind of transferred over from the clinic, and I took one other class while I was here.
Well,
and that's something you knew you wanted to do, and you sought it out. No one's going to go to you and say, hey, you want to spend your third year in another place. But if you know you want to do that, or you want to end up somewhere else, it's definitely something worth exploring.
Right. The clerkships that I had in Gainesville during my 2L year, while, I learned a lot, I wasn't getting the kind of experience that I knew I wanted. And bankruptcy cases up there were very limited. There were really no firms in Gainesville that had bankruptcy practices.
Right.
So yeah, it seemed like the right thing to do.
And the Bankruptcy Clinic, that's something that is still going on today, right? And something that, again, if law students want to help people, right, to get involved in helping people and do a good thing, but also get the practical experience and get involved in bankruptcy, that's an option for them, right, to take advantage of while they're at UM in law school.
Absolutely. And one of the plus sides to it, which Jeff kind of mentioned, is you are mentored by lawyers in the community. So if you're interested in pursuing bankruptcy as a career, it's a great opportunity to get to know some of the attorneys, to make a great impression with some of those attorneys and potentially move forward, on that path.
Right. And while we're on the topic of pro bono work, the flip side is for the attorneys, obviously, we encourage, at least at this firm, but the Florida Bar encourages all lawyers to participate in pro bono cases. We do a lot of it here. I like to do them through the clinic because I get to I hate to use this term here, but kill two birds with one stone. I can mentor a young law student and help a client in need, a debtor in need through bankruptcy. So I work with the law student and we work with the client, and the law student does most of the work with our guidance, and we guide a client through an insolvency, and they get a great outcome. It doesn't cost them any money, and the student learns, and we get to feel good. So pluses all around.
And I know not just the Florida Bar, but also the local Bankruptcy Bar as well. Southern District Bankruptcy Bar Association also puts a huge emphasis on pro bono. I know the judges do, but also the practitioners as well.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of our goals to have actually 100% participation in pro bono from the lawyers of the bar. And I've had the opportunity since I've been a practicing attorney to also mentor students from the clinic. And so it's nice to see it all kind of come full circle.
Right.
So you, as Jeff mentioned at the beginning of the introduction, you are about to take over as president of the Southern District of Florida Bankruptcy Bar Association. No, Thursday,
right?
July 1.
July 1st
July
is the
1st.
official date
That's
that
right.
my presidency begins, although Eric Silver, the outgoing president, would like to have you believe that it started yesterday at the end of the retreat. Still have a couple more days.
So-
but yes, as of July 1st, I will
We're
be the
recording
president.
this on the 28th, excuse me.
28th of June. So you have a few more days until you officially, although I'm sure a lot of your duties have already begun. And I learned something today for the first time, which is you are the youngest to become president of the Bankruptcy Bar Association. So congratulations on that. And that tells me and tells our listeners that you got involved at an early age, early in your career, but also early age for you. Question is why, and sort of what benefits have you seen for you in your practice and your career?
Sure. So as I mentioned, my family members have been active members of the bar. My aunt and uncle actually founded the BBA way back when.
Wait. What?
Just over 40 years ago.
They founded
They were
the BBA?
founding members of the BBA along with Larry Shantz and a couple of others. And so I kind of grew up hearing about the organization. I had been to different events with them just kind of over the years. And so always knew that that was something I wanted to be involved in. When I became an attorney and passed the bar, my first thought was, how can I get more involved in this organization? So I became a member of the Young Lawyers Committee of the BBA, which unfortunately no longer exists because we have a lack of young lawyers in the BBA, and
which
we
we'll
can
talk
talk about that.
Yeah.
But so I just knew, very early on that I wanted to be active in the organization. I've always found it to be a great way to be connected in the community and to kind of develop my own relationships, right? So obviously the firm has a number of clients that we've worked with for years that you all have your relationships with, but I have independently been able to create my own relationships with these same people and nurture relationships with them where, I'm at the point and have been for several years where, I might get a phone call directly where they may have called one of you in the past and they're comfortable, okay, Hayley can handle this. And so it's just been a nice way to establish myself kind of independently. And also I think, for the firm, as other members of the firm have taken an active interest in other organizations or maybe spending time in other places, it's been a really nice way to stay connected.
And for young lawyers that may be listening to this that are thinking about getting involved, or maybe, they just don't, young lawyers or experienced lawyers that just aren't yet involved. I mean, how do they get involved? What can they do to get involved, even at beginning phases?
Right. So the organization is really focused on kind of bettering the practice of bankruptcy in the Southern District of Florida. So yes, there's, of course, a social component to it, and everybody likes to go to happy hour and go to the dinners and do things like that. But we really are focused on encouraging best practices all around. We are focused on pro bono, as you mentioned, and put on a lot of really robust CLE programming for our members. We've got lots of opportunities for mentorship. Through the organization, we do what's called Table of Eights, where we'll have a more seasoned member of the practice or a judge. We'll host a dinner with 7 other members of the bar and have an opportunity to really have a more intimate conversation with those people, which I've always found fascinating. I think it's, you don't necessarily get that type of one-on-one time with somebody unless you really seek it out. And a lot of times our practitioners and our judges are very busy. And so the fact that they make time to do that, I think has always been something nice. But so I mentioned earlier, we used to have a young lawyers kind of division of the BBA. Over the last 8 years, we really haven't seen a ton of young membership. And I think, that's probably a function of the economy as well as a number of other things. But there is an opportunity for young lawyers to become involved, to serve on committees if they don't necessarily want to run for a board position or be that active initially. There are lots of different committees, different ways to participate, and even just showing up at some of the events and really, feeling more connected, feeling more ingrained in the community, and then deciding from there to maybe, take a more active role.
Right. And we're having this conversation about the Bankruptcy Bar Association of the Southern District of Florida, but most of this applies to really any bar association. So rule number 1 is just show up.
Right.
And absolutely. I think rule number 2 would be raise your hand. If you just volunteer for a committee or a board or whatever it is, that's the, step 2 to getting active is to, offer to be active, offer to help and participate. And I think, most people find that being active in a bar association, whether it's the American Bar or Bankruptcy Bar or some other association, is that it is a great way to start building a network and get to know other members of your practice area that you may not really have an opportunity to meet otherwise.
One of the benefits that I've found is, even though it is the quote unquote Southern District Bar Association, we do have a number of members that come down from Orlando and Tampa that, even though they're technically middle district attorneys, we all kind of participate in some of the same cases. And so you do have an opportunity to kind of connect with them as well.
Right.
And we've developed a reputation, as the BBA for the Southern District of Florida. Our programming is a little bit more robust than some of the middle district or what the Northern District might be doing. And so we do get a lot of involvement from those attorneys and those practitioners and judges.
Well, and we also, Southern District will go up there too, as well. And so it's nice to have that. So what, given this void, and I know we as more senior statesmen, just, if you will, in the practice, Jeff more senior than I, we're seeing a little bit of a void as well in terms of the younger lawyers coming up. And by younger, I just mean less years of experience in the practice. And so is the BBA doing anything to try to address that, to bring in, generation next, if you will?
So we have talked about some of the things that we, want to do going forward. I think connecting with the law schools and the law students kind of earlier on is key. A lot of times our first interaction with a law student may be their 3L year when they've participated in a clinic or had a clerkship somewhere. And at that point, most students know what area they want to practice in. So trying to get connected earlier on and being kind of out in front of them at an earlier stage in their law school experience, I think may be really useful. We've talked about ways to connect, not just, right here in Miami. Obviously, the BBA has ties to University of Miami and FIU and St. Thomas, but we're talking about also how can we expand kind of outside of just Miami, because there are plenty of lawyers, such as myself, who go to other law schools in the state that ultimately end up practicing down in South Florida. So we're working on doing that. And I think it's also a function of, like I mentioned, kind of what's been going on in the world, right? When different areas are hot, that's where law students tend to focus their interests. And so I think we're all kind of expecting post-pandemic that there will be maybe not the tsunami of bankruptcy cases that we had imagined, but there will certainly be an increase in filings, and the judges are preparing for that. And I think a lot of the local practitioners are as well. And so I think we'll see a stronger interest coming out of the law schools just based on what's been going on in the world.
So I know for me, I mean, I don't even know if it was offered back then, but I did not take the bankruptcy skills workshop, that's offered, the bankruptcy program that's offered, but I took a litigation skills program. And that certainly, to me, it was I think it was my 3L year, right? So maybe a little late, but I knew before that I wanted to get into it, which is why I took it. So how can we try as a BBA, you're the president now, so I'm going to put this on you. How can we as BBA sort of get in with students early enough to get them to either want to take that course or want to, clerk and try bankruptcy? What are some of the things that you guys are talking about?
So one of the things that was recently accomplished, there was approval at the district court level to have 2L students participate in the clinic. It used to only be open to 3Ls. So there's, I think, certainly a benefit to that of getting people really, not just taking the courses, because I think taking a bankruptcy course, especially if you don't know much about it, I mean, bankruptcy law in and of itself, I don't know whether that is super exciting to a law student, but I think participating in the clinic and getting to actually see it in practice is where kind of the light switches. So I'm hopeful that will play a role, but I think there's a lot we can do, even just by putting on some programming at the law school and inviting law students to attend some of our events, I think will be a useful tool.
Is that something that's in the works coming up?
Yes, we are talking about implementing that going forward.
Excellent.
Great.
That'd be great.
So Hayley, we've touched a little bit on age. You're the youngest president. What about gender? Have we seen a lot of female presidents of this particular association?
So historically, the bankruptcy bar, and I think generally this is, similar to the practice of law in general, obviously there are less women than men that practice, generally speaking. But in the BBA, historically, we have had a number of female presidents that have led the organization, but not in the last 10 years. So it's actually exactly 10 years ago that we had a female president of the association. And so it's been kind of a long time coming, especially, I think, with everything that's been going on in the world.
So you're the youngest president and the first female president in 10 years. That's very impressive.
That's correct.
And is there you go.
There we go. That was our sound effect for the day.
Is the membership fairly skewed towards males as well?
Yes.
In the association. And that's really a function of the makeup of the bar.
It is. And, I think we see, and this is not a bankruptcy specific issue, but something we see across the bar in general. A lot of my female colleagues that I started out practicing with have either left the practice of law or kind of had to reduce their workload and different things because they've had kids and have a lot, on their plate. And so we've also talked about that. What can we do, not just as an organization, but as a bar in general to, kind of help women further develop their career and continue on and not feel like they get to a point where they have to make a choice.
Right. And I think that's something that's pervasive throughout all areas of practice, but Absolutely. It's good that it sounds like under your direction, the bankruptcy bar is focusing on that as well, which is super important. It's great. And we need young people and we need more women and we just need more people,
more diversity in general, really.
This is a topic that we also addressed in our Business Advantage Forum, and Hayley moderated a panel on a very similar topic, and you can check that out. That's another episode of our podcast. We'll put it in the show notes, and that'll be another great way to hear Hayley talking to some elite professionals about the issues of women in business and law, balancing work-life balance, if you will. I can't remember the exact title of the
that was along the lines, and I know Brett hates that word balance, but
I don't hate it. I don't the right word. I don't hate it. I don't think it is practical, right? Because
absolutely,
when you give more time to one, you're going to give less time to the other. So to me, that's a function of life. It's harmony, right? Because at any one point in time, you've got to give a little bit more time perhaps to one aspect of your life over the other. You can't just give 50-50 all the time, right?
Balance implies, balance implies equal distribution,
right? And there are certainly times where one takes priority, but I do think it's incumbent on all of us to figure out how, we can help women succeed in the profession. And I think that's, a testament to this firm is the fact that I have spent my entire career here. I have a 3.5-year-old and, I have
she's adorable, by the way.
Thank you. She's pretty cute. But I have, not only have I been able to grow professionally here, but I also do maintain that harmony in a way that I am very appreciative of. And, I don't think everybody has that and everybody has that flexibility and that opportunity, which is why some people suffer and have to make that choice.
Well, and I think the practice suffers generally because of it. So, it's hard. It's hard on all sides to make that stuff work, but I think it's necessary, right? I think we think it's necessary to try to make that work. And, hopefully that becomes the norm and not just, something, we have to have panels on all this stuff, all the time. So hopefully that's true.
Yeah. And I think with the pandemic, I think there has been some good, right, that has come out of it is that people have recognized that flexibility isn't such a bad thing. And I think our firm was kind of ahead of the curve on that a little bit. But I think other people are realizing that working remotely can work in a lot of situations and that, if you don't have childcare or you've got something that comes up that, it's still possible to get your job done. And so hopefully that going forward will kind of percolate through and, people will be able to maintain a better harmony, if you will.
There you go. Nice.
Harmony.
It's sticking. It's sticking.
I like it. So, Hayley, any last words for young aspiring lawyers who are looking to become active in their bar association or just any other words to inspire us?
Well, I think, as you said, it's important to just kind of show up. People notice when you do. And so whether you want to take an active role or not, just being there and saying hi to people and making conversation, taking an interest in what other people are doing and just connecting, I think is the first step. And it's a great way to, grow from there and continue if you choose to do so. But it's also a good way to figure out if that's the right fit for you or,
or not. Right. One day at a time.
Thank you for those inspiring words and for all the work you've done to date and then what you're going to do and the focus. We'd love to have you back maybe at varying points throughout your tenure as president to see what's going on through the BBA and what you've been able to accomplish. And I'm sure there's going to be some growing pains of implementing some things as there always is. And then perhaps at the end about, sort of your tenure and what happened. And hopefully we can be talking about all these great successes and moving things forward. So congratulations to you on your ascendancy to the presidency.
Where can our listeners find you? At Hayley Harrison, LinkedIn?
I'm at Hayley G. Harrison on LinkedIn. On the firm's website is access to all of my profiles on Facebook and LinkedIn and otherwise.
Great.
Thank you, Hayley.
Thanks very much.
Nelson Rosado, our producer. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Nelson.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit bastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Bast Amron.